Your portfolio is like a friend who can speak highly of you to any potential employers or clients.
I want to fall in love with how you present your stuff.
These are your technical tasks. I'm not just looking at your technical expertise. I'm interested in your journey.
The one thing, in my opinion, that beats empathy is experience.
I want to see the thinking.
I'd look for evidence of them having built components, them having understanding of what components are.
And if you can do that, then the world's your oyster. That's really kind of what I look for.
I want to see the thinking process. I want to see why some decisions were abandoned or why some directions were abandoned and what was chosen instead. I would say for me, it's not that important what methodology exactly you're using, but I would love to see that, of course. But the more important part is that you can argue why you decided to move in that way, and that why should not be based on assumptions. Not because I felt like, or not because I had a feeling that. That doesn't go in my book, right? You need to have some objective language in use that really clearly explains that this is objectively better. And again, you can always say, well, drop downs are faster or this is faster. Well, ideally, you would need to have data to prove that. The more thinking, the better. I mean, personally, I have sometimes situations where somebody would just draw like a solution on paper and give it to me. And as long as I can follow and understand what the process was like and why this thing has been chosen, that's all I need. That's fine. That works for me.
If you're looking for a job, most of the time what you want to convey through your portfolio is that you reached the competency levels. And to do that, I would say any kind of project or any kind of format to show that you've done the work will work. It could be a fake project. It could be a real project. Sometimes it doesn't even have to be linked to a Figma prototype, because I know we tend to be very, very obsessed with our tooling. But for example, I have someone that I've been mentoring who had a past experience in video editing. And something they've been doing is actually working in I think, clinical office to enhance the engagement with patients. And to do this, they actually made a bunch of videos of the doctors just to feel a bit more approachable. So it's not just, a screen between the patients and the doctor. And to me, that is user research. This is also understanding the problem, the creative ideas. And yes, maybe the outcome is a video and it's not a screen design. But if he has this project and some UI exercise, then yes, for me, he'll be able to be doing UX work.
So a few things. And I'm trying to answer this fast, okay? Work on some components, even if it's just for your own products. Show that you have an understanding of what component design is. Then I would work quite hard on a couple of aspects, and these are hard skills, by the way. I'd focus on learning about typography, spacing, all that good visual design stuff, because it is important in design systems. And then finally, work on your writing skills. Being able to communicate well, especially written communication, is really valuable. I'd look for evidence of them having built components, of them having understanding of what components are, of what a design system is, and just try and read about it.
I'm not looking for anything polished. That is just the end product. I'm interested in your journey. So doesn't matter you are junior or senior, I want to see what's your process. How to go from one step to the other. What is the problem? How do you approach presenting it in a way which is user-facing? How do you write feature specs? How do you take it to wireframing state? How do you create low fidelity, high fidelity user? Anything you are building should not be based on an opinion. You should give me data. You should say, I did this because I did competitor benchmarking. This is what worked in other games. People connect better with characters. So it was a good way to introduce that meta feature. But also, what did you do? Even if you are just a student, did you build that prototype and did you do some kind of mock testing with another player just to say, yeah, I also tested it with somebody who's never used this feature. And this is the feedback I've got. So show me your process, show me your journey, show me your objectivity. That is what I want to look at on a junior level. If you are applying for mid or senior level, I'm not just looking at your technical expertise, which I know you will have. I also want to see soft skills. How good are you at collaborating? How good you are at taking criticism? feedback, how good you are at defending your decisions, how good you are at taking initiative, how good you are at aligning your stakeholders. So my general rule of thumb is everybody who's hired needs to be good, including your director, because I have to get hands-on also many times. They should have solid or technical skills with potential, but the higher up you go, I want to also see more of your soft skills, leadership, collaboration, and all that stuff.
I think the biggest thing is storytelling to me. I mean, basic skills. That's the beauty of it. Is I think a lot of this stuff is sketching, it's whiteboarding, it's customer interviewing, it's being able to speak with a variety of team members and get them all to a single story that actually makes sense to the customer. Really being able to balance opposing viewpoints and say, well, let's make 2 prototypes. Great. It seems like we can't come to an agreement. Let's make one like this and one like this and test it. And I've done it many times in my life. But if you've ever done any prototyping or any kind of sketching or ideation, that is just kind of your basic technique, just taken to the next level. And with AI, there is so many Legos for you to play with and so much opportunity. And if you can do that, then the world's your oyster. That's really kind of what I look for, is being able to do all these things, but also facilitate this discussion about how far can you take it. And of course, I mean, everyone's got some Figma skills. I don't think you need to be a huge Figma jockey for this thing. Once you came up with the idea, it's just a matter of documenting using your design system components that hopefully you do have a design system. I hope you do. All right.
My advice for a portfolio, whether it's design systems or not, is the same. And it's that you should tell the story of the project. So don't think that a design system project versus a different type of project has to be structured differently or has to be structured in a specific way. Focus on the milestones that happened in that project, the challenges that you overcame, and what you delivered, and tell that story. That should help you to just have a consistent story arc and really focus on the project dictating the case study, not you having to fit every project into a very cookie cutter format.
In portfolios, if I were to apply for a job, I would not just like, oh, I've done this little AR app and I've done this little VR project, but I would make sure how it connects to the users. And so who was this designed for? And so one of my projects that I would personally lead with, if I were to apply for a job, is probably this inclusive gym that I've created. It was a smaller project for me. It's not in my main research portfolio, but it allows children in wheelchairs to exercise and play games with each other. And actually, from an AR perspective, it's not particularly technically challenging or hard, but at least it would demonstrate how I think about this space and what kinds of AR and VR solutions I want to create where I see my responsibility.
On a design portfolio, I'm a very visual person, so I want to fall in love with how you present your stuff and with the style, with your typography. Typography, dude, that's the first thing I see in the portfolio. Like, if you're not taking good care of your typography with your character length, your line height, the hierarchy, all that stuff, that's already like, I'm done with you. I don't want to see you. I don't want to know anything about you. Get out of here. No, it's just like the web, everything we do, like as designers, a lot of it is text. Most of it is text, you know? So I look for that care and attention to detail in a portfolio. That's the first thing I notice. And actually, it's not because I'm looking for it, it just like instantly pops for me. Like I see it's like, ooh, it's like, you tried. Close. I know it's cruel, but sometimes if you have a lot of portfolios you're seeing and you don't have a lot of time, you're just looking for excuses to close that window. You're looking for excuses to filter out people. That sounds cruel, I know, but that's how recruiters work. They have to filter out people because they may have a lot of options and they're just looking for excuses. So don't give them that excuse. I'm going to say something a little bit controversial. Don't write the whole design process, all that thing, like that cookie cutter template design process that I'm pretty sure you didn't even follow. You just reverse engineer it and you put it there in your portfolio. Tell me a story. I want to be entertained. I know that it sounds now even cliche. It's all about storytelling, but it really is. We're humans and we just want to gather around the fire and want to be told a story and before we go to sleep. And in these stories, you can be the hero, all the challenges that you went through. Oh man, we tried this and it didn't work, but that allowed me to learn. And then I overcame my challenges and I became the hero of this story. You can be the hero of that story. It can be, I don't know, your user, when you were doing user testing, you found out something. Tell that story of that person. It could be, maybe it is actually the company, they were struggling and they were trying to get to a new market or something. Tell me that story. I want to be entertained. We all want to be entertained. If I'm going to be looking at your portfolio, you better have good typography and a nice story.
Empathy is really, really important, right? We talk about empathy a lot as user-centered designers, as human-centered designers. But the one thing, in my opinion, that beats empathy is experience. Portfolio-wise specifically, I really want to see a breadth of experience there. And the reasoning why is that I think more than anything, if you have worked for startups and also larger enterprise companies, if you've worked on mobile products and you've also worked on desktop products, if you work for enterprise systems and consumer-facing products, B2B, B2C, that means that you've seen a range of different needs of the user. And that also means that in entirety, when you're working on these different projects and you're kind of consuming the research that it takes to build these products, you're in a place where you really understand what the user needs. So if you have actually experienced what the business needs and also what the user needs, if you've experienced how to toggle between the two, then I can look at that and I can be like, well, you look like you can learn a lot. And what AI, especially for ethical AI, what I think needs to be done is that there needs to be a lot more assessment and quality on designers that are that showcase a breadth of learning and a breadth of implementation of that learning, right? And but when I'm interviewing people, or especially when I'm teaching, what I typically like to do is I like to really, really encourage my students to go in and just explore the world and explore the ways that they can implement strategies in different ways and also fail, right? That's a really big part of being a designer. I don't even consider the vocabulary of failure as something that I have in my book, because I don't consider it failure. I just consider it, it's a learning lesson. We just learned something.